In this video, we're going to be taking a look at creating this swim mom design from the very beginning to the very end, but we're going to be doing it completely from scratch. And we're going to show you a process that we really do with every single rhinestone design that we look at. And while it's a fairly simple design, the process that we're going to go through to create the design is probably a process that you would never have thought of um, just by looking at our EasyStone software, or really any Rhinestone software for that matter. One of the keys to creating really great looking Rhinestone designs is really having an understanding of how to utilize the tools that you have. And one of the biggest problems in the industry, if you look at any Rhinestone software on the market, there really isn't a lot of real detailed step-by-step instructions to show you how to get the most out of your software. And that's really what we aim to do here. So again, we're going to just start this process, and we're going to go through the entire process from beginning to end. So it doesn't matter really where we start. I think maybe what we'll start, because of the simplicity, is maybe we'll start with the letter M. I love mom designs because I only have to create one letter, and then of course I can duplicate that letter. So let me show you what you would do here. So, there's a variety of ways that we could go about creating this design, but I'm just going to kind of just show you generically one way to go about it. So the first thing we're going to do, of course, is we're going to type the letter M. So there is our letter M. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change our font. And for this letter M, I use the Curls font. And I'm going to do it at 2.5 inches tall. So just up here, we just type in 2.5 inches tall, and that's it. So now that's 2.5 inches tall. Looks like I was on my guideline when I did that, my guideline layer when I did that. So we'll just move that up here. All right. So now the next process here is to go ahead and stone this. And what we're going to do is we're going to convert this to a bitmap. So we're going to select our letter M, which is currently in a vector format, and go to bitmaps, convert to bitmap. And just go ahead and accept whatever the defaults are. And we do this a lot when we're working with fonts because we're going to create a single line letter M here. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trace, and we're going to do a center line trace. And it doesn't matter what option you choose. I usually just choose line, and you can fiddle with all the different settings. And honestly, it's not really going to make a whole lot of difference. But there is one thing that I really want to point out here, actually two, I guess, is I want to point out down here, see where it says trace results? It says curve 1. And that's significant. If we understand what our Rhinestone software is going to want, we're going to want more than one curve. So basically what that's telling us is that this letter M here is going to be all one continuous line. That's how our Rhinestone software is going to see that. And you'll see that because of that, we're going to get results that aren't very good. And then the other thing I wanted to point out too, and this happens a lot with trace, is that we always get tons of nodes. So you can see by default we get 122 nodes. But let's just go ahead and hit OK. And you'll see a trace result. Now we can delete the bitmap because we don't need that anymore. And this is the trace result. Now, just looking at this, it's not pretty, but we can fix this up in a jiffy using the tools here in EasyStone as well as the tools here in CorelDRAW. So there is our trace result. We're going to come over here in CorelDRAW and choose this Shape Edit tool. And then up here, you can see this button right here, Select All Nodes. And now you can see all nodes are selected. And if you look down here, it says 129 nodes are selected, and there are 7 subpaths. And then up here for reduced nodes, we could just kind of just click on this generic reduced nodes. And now you can see we have 124 nodes, so that didn't help us a lot. But then we have this slider control. And really what we want to pay close attention to primarily are these curves. See these curves here? That's primarily what we want to. And now if we look down here, you can see we only have 32 nodes. Okay, huge difference there in terms of the number of nodes. So now we need to look at this a little bit more, but let's go ahead and add stones to this. So let's go to the stone tab and choose add stones. And you can see that the result is so-so. But down here there's a little bit of a problem. Up here, obviously there's a problem there. So, but the results are okay. They're not great, but they're okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix this up a little bit here. So let's just look at this corner right here. And what we're going to do here is go back to our shape edit tool, and you see all this nastiness right here. We're just going to select that whole little group of nodes there. Come over here to our editing tab here in Easy Stone and click on break at nodes. All right, and then once we've done that, we can select that whole group right there in the middle, and we just hit our delete key and get rid of it. So now you can kind of see we're breaking this apart bit by bit. So we'll go back to that shape edit tool and see this here. We're just going to go ahead and line that up just like so. Now, there's two paths right here. If you look here, there's two paths. If you look over here in our object manager, you can see we have two curves. So over here on the editing tab here in Easy Stone, we're going to click on join paths. And that takes care of that. So now there's just one curve. So now what we're going to do right here is we're just going to right click on this line. As we hover over, see that little squiggly line we get? We can right click and choose to line, and that'll straighten that out for us. And now I can add stones to this. So we'll go back over here to our stone tab and choose add stones. Now, because we have some stones for a reference line, now this vertical line, let's click on that. Do you see this line? It comes down and to the left. So that is one continuous line. So once again, what I do is go back to my shape edit tool, select that node, come to my editing tab and break. So now this bottom line is two lines. You can see that here in the object manager. So again, join paths. And again, we can come to the stone tab and choose add stones. And that takes care of that. So now this line here is a separate line. So I'm actually going to undo this because there's a little bit of a bump in that bottom line there. You can see that right there, that little bump. We're going to go ahead and delete that. And now when we choose add stones, you can see we'll get a little bit straighter line there. All right. So now that we've taken care of that, we can go ahead and take this vertical line here, and we can just line it up. So I might just take that right to the center there. And then this bottom line, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it just like it is. And we're going to go ahead and add stones to it. Now don't worry about that stone there that's overlapping. We're going to take care of that later. All right, so now this whole side of our letter M is basically taken care of. So now we can move over to this side. And again, we're going to do the same kind of thing here. We're going to look at this line, this top line here. We're just going to delete, and we're going to hover over to line. We're going to delete this extra node that we don't need there. We're going to delete that. So now we have a straight line. We're going to go ahead and choose add stones there. And then we're going to look at that vertical line. And we're going to move that to right there. And we're going to right click and choose to line. And look at it on the bottom there. That looks good. So click on add stones. That takes care of that. So you can see how everything is coming together fairly easily. Now this next line here, we're going to go back to our shape edit tool here in CorelDRAW. And we're going to go ahead and pull that up to this stone here. And you can kind of see what this does. We're going to go ahead and pull that down. We're going to, again, right click on this to line. I want that to be a straight line. And the same thing here. We're going to just pull that up. We're going to delete that extra node. We're going to delete this extra node. Delete that one. We're going to right click to line. So that's a nice straight line as well. And then, again, we're going to go ahead and select that node, come to the editing tab and break. So now those two lines are two separate lines. You can see that here in the object manager. So when I click on add stones, you can see we get that. Now, I can sit back and look at this letter M, and that's basically complete. The only thing that I am going to change here, though, is I'm going to change the angle of this line. I don't like this big gap right here, so we're just going to change that a little bit. So all we're going to do is just pull that over till we get that where we want it there, which is, I think is right there is fine. And then we're going to pull this over. And I think I'm happy with that, just like that. Okay? So that's just a couple of minor things there. Now, just to finish this off, we're going to select the entire letter M, come over here to our selection tab, and click on Delete Stone Paths. And yes, and yes. And now you can see all of our stone paths have been deleted. This little line here, we didn't add stones to it. Now you can see this is a little bit tight right here. So we'll just nudge that. We'll just cheat that just a little bit. And that looks good there. Now you can see down here too, this we need to modify just a little bit as well, because I had a stone that was overlapping there. So that takes care of that. Then we do have an overlapping stone here. So we'll go ahead and delete that. And then up top here, you can see we do have an overlapping stone as well. So we'll go ahead and delete that one. And then we'll go ahead and delete that one. Now, what I do like to do is I do like to just double check to see if there are any overlapping stones that I can't see. And so I'll select the whole design, come over here to the editing tab and choose check spacing. It did find 3 stones. So we'll go ahead and delete those extra stones that were sitting one right on top of another. And that is our letter M. Okay, so now comes the fun part, I think, and that is creating our little life preserver here. So that's what we're going to look at doing right now. So to begin our life preserver, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our circle tool here in CorelDRAW, and we're going to go ahead and, if we hold down our control key, we'll constrain to a perfect circle. Our life preserver is going to be 3 inches. So we'll make it 3 inches. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come in here to our stone fill tab. And we're going to use our island fill option. Now I'm going to change my stone size to 3.4. So there's our stone size 3.4. And we're going to click on island fill. And you can see we get a series of concentric circles. That's what island fill will do for us. And we're going to delete a few. Now the next thing we're going to do is we need to create these bands of red. And the way we're going to go about this is a little bit technical, but that's just how I am. So what we're going to do here is I usually actually work off my page. So let me move my design off my page. If I change my stone color, I'm just going to pick a random color and hit drop stone. You can see what it does. It creates a circle the size of a SS10, and then what we're going to do is go to our stone fill tab and we're going to hit offset, 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 offset. So we have 5 stones here, and then what we're going to do is grab our rectangle tool here, and we're just going to draw a rectangle, and then the width of that rectangle is going to go from center of circle to center of circle. That's why we drew those stones. It's just kind of a reference point. And then we're going to stretch that out a little bit there. Okay, so now we have our band that we're going to have for our red. Now I think originally, it looks like originally we used 6. So maybe I'll redo that. I'll go back over here and I'll draw a new rectangle. And again, we'll just stretch out the width so it's 6 stones wide. And then we'll go ahead and pull that back down, make it nice and big like that. So that takes care of that, and we're going to delete that one. All right, so we're going to take all of our rings here, and we're going to combine all of them and group them together. So we're going to hit Control G to group, and then we're going to, here's our band, and we're going to rotate that band 45 degrees. So there it is, 45 degrees. We're going to hit the plus key on our keyboard. That will duplicate it right on top of itself. And then use the mirror function here in CorelDRAW to mirror it. So now we almost have this look of a railroad crossing. So we're going to select both of our bands and group those together. And then take the group of our circles and hit C and E. And that will center everything up just perfectly. So now you can see what we have going here. Now, it may not make a whole lot of sense right now, but trust me, it will. It'll all come together here momentarily. So let's ungroup. Let's actually, I tell you what, let's take both groups, group those 2 groups together, and then ungroup all. And that will ungroup the circles and our 2 bands. So everything has been ungrouped. Now, the next thing to do is to select everything, and these two bands here in the middle, actually I think there's three here, but these two bands in the middle I'm going to unselect. I'm going to unselect that third one too. Now we really can't see exactly, but if I recolor these, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So we have three bands in the middle that we didn't select. Those are not selected. Everything that's green is what's selected. So I'll make that blue now. So everything that's blue is what is selected. So if we go to our editing tab, we can click on this intersection button. Okay? And what that essentially does is it cuts all these lines at the intersection. So you can see right there where the lines are hitting the circle, they're all cut. All right, so now that's basically what we're left with. So this middle circle, we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that too. All right, so now the next process here is to go ahead and add stones. So the two black lines that we didn't touch, we're going to select both of those, change our stone color to light cyan, and then we're going to come in here and choose add stones, and that will add red stones there. And then we have four lines here. So if I hold down my Alt key and click and drag, see those four lines that I just picked up? Let me recolor those to green so you can see exactly what I have selected. See how those lines turn green? So that's what I have selected. So if I change that to, actually I'm going to leave it light cyan and hit add stones. Now you can kind of see what we've got going on there. So that band, and I'm just going to do that on all the sides. So select those four lines. Again, I'll hold down the Alt key, and anything that crosses that marquee is selected. Again, if I turn those lines green, you'll be able to see that's what I have selected. So if I choose add stones, that's always a good idea. When you're making these types of selections, it doesn't hurt to just quickly change the color. Make sure you have selected what you intended to select and hit add stones. And then again, Alt key, click, and we'll add stones one more time. So now you can kind of see what we have there. Now we're going to switch over to our crystal color here. And we'll just Alt key, marquee select, right there in the middle. And you can see down here we have four objects. So again, we would just choose add stones. Now, I'm going to go ahead and select those group of stones right there that we just added and hit shift page down, because what we want to pay attention to is at the end here. See where the top color is this kind of gray color? Shift page down. Now the top color is our light cyan. That's what we want. So right now we have stones on top of stones. We have light cyan on top of our crystal, but that's okay. We'll fix that here momentarily. So we'll go ahead and choose add stones to the bottom. Again, marquee select, shift page down to adjust the order. Now over here, again, we'll marquee select the sides. Now, on the sides, see where it says we actually have 7 objects selected? And that's just because on the side here we had nodes, and so we broke it apart. Each one of those is actually 2 separate objects there. So what we're going to do here, but the outside one is 1. That's why we have 7. It's just the way that intersection function worked. But that's fine because it doesn't really matter. When we hit add stones, you can see the stones that we get. Now, all of these lines here, let me go ahead and, again, we'll marquee select these. We'll do that shift page down again. And then we'll do the exact same thing to the other side. And then we'll talk a little bit more about taking a look at this design in a bit more detail. So let's hit add stones. Let's go ahead and marquee select, shift page down. All right, so what we want to do here is really study this, because if you notice the spacing between these stones, if we're happy with that, we just kind of want to look at that all the way around the whole design. And something I noticed over here, see on this one, we have 4 stones, where this one over here, we only have 3. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but we can select this. And the reason that we have 3 on one side and 4 on the other is probably because of the way the line was split. If we look at this line on this side, you can see it's one continuous line, where on the other side, on this side, it's two separate pieces. See, this piece is separate from that piece. So we just kind of have to be aware of that and look at that because we do want those to be the same. So I think for simplicity's sake, let's just go ahead and delete all of what's happening over here, and then take what's happening over here. Okay, all we have to do is hit the plus key on our keyboard. That will duplicate that whole set. Flip it over, and then all we have to do is grab it from, like we're going to grab it right here from the node, and then we can snap from node to node, and then we know everything is lined up perfectly. See, so we just make that small tiny adjustment, look at the rest of the design, the rest of the design looks fine. So now what we're going to do is select everything, and we're going to come over here to our break stones, so we'll break our stones. That removes the stones, so now every single stone is separate. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to select two. We're going to select a gray one and a red one, and we're going to come over here to selections, and we're going to say mark object. And then what we're going to do is select the entire design here, and we're going to say pick up everything that matches the fill of what I marked. So we're going to hit create selection, and what that's going to do is going to pick up every red stone and every crystal stone, and everything else is left behind. So only red and crystal stones were picked up. So all this work, this framework for adding the stones, that's all goes away. Now we do have stones on top of stones, so we do need to analyze that. So we'll come back over here to the editing tab, click on check spacing. There's 32 stones sitting one right on top of another that we can't see somewhere in the design. So we're going to go ahead and flush all those away. And you can see the design didn't change, but if we go back to the check spacing, you can see that there were no adjacent or overlapping shapes found. Okay? So then all we have to do is select our little light preserver here and group it together. And then we have, we'll go ahead and group our letter M together as well here. And then we just kind of position this, and we hit the E key. That will center vertically, that will center our preserver to our letter M. And then we'll go ahead and duplicate our letter M over here. And again, we're going to go from beginning to end for this design because this design is not over. So the next thing to do always is to add a weed box. So we'll come over here to the miscellaneous and choose add weed box. Okay. Then what I do for every design that I send you, I duplicate the design to the right. And then now earlier we grouped the letter M and the little light preserver thing. So we're going to group and then right click and ungroup all. So now everything is separated once again. So then the next thing I would do is come in here and select all of my stones again. And then we have to come down here to stone use report. And this would give us a report how wide the design is. So the design is 9 inches by 3 1/4 inches tall. It tells us all the stones that are used. But when I click add dimensions, it automatically adds the dimensions of the design underneath. Okay. And then the next thing I would do is I would come in here, go back to the stone tab and simulate the design for you. Just takes a minute to simulate the design. So now the simulation is complete. So then the next step after that is to add the little bling shapes. So we'll click on add bling here. And 10 of them is good enough. So I'll choose add bling. And then usually what I'll do is I'll switch over to wireframe mode. And you can see it just kind of randomly places the blings. It doesn't do it in any real logical order. So I'll just take some of these if I want to move them around, make some small adjustments so they're not all grouped in just one area. And you can right click and add an extra one here or there too if you want. Now you can see that we have one right on top of another here, so we'll just move it. Alright, now let's take a look at something here. Just a little minor point. If we look at the blings, you can see they're kind of a sharp edge here. And that looks okay. If you want to leave it like that, it looks perfectly fine. But I added a little extra feature here, where if we want to, we can select all of our shapes here and click on Soften the Bling. And when we do that, the software will just soften the bling a little bit. So now when we look at the bling shape, you can see it looks kind of pretty like that. So whatever you like, it's really not that big a deal, obviously. All right, so now the next step, let's go ahead and close this out. So our next step then is to add a watermark for the website. And we do that using our Easy Prep tool. So I'll come over here to Easy Prep and we'll choose watermark. Now I have all the settings already set, and I just click on Add Watermark, and it adds that watermark to the background. You can see it says Easy Stone Templates. So that's taken care of. And then you could use Easy Prep, or you could do it here in Easy Stone too. The next step, of course, is to create a proof image for the website. So we'll go ahead and choose Export Proof Image, and we're going to give it a name. So let's go ahead and give it 12/29/12, or I tell you what, let's just do 12/30 12-EST-swim, and then I click on Save CDR because this has not been saved yet. And then I always export at 500 pixels a JPEG, and it will export to the desktop. And now that JPEG has been generated on the desktop. So then the next thing to do, yes, we're not done yet. The next thing we need to do is we need to create our color separations. So we're going to go ahead and do that by selecting the design here on the left. And again, we'll probably group and ungroup all just to make sure everything is separated, individual stones. And then we're going to choose the export vector file. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different now. In this particular design, let me just go ahead and do this. Let's just go ahead and export it. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose Combo, and we're going to export as EPS, SVG, and PLT, and we're going to choose Export. And it's going to create each one of those files for us. So now our export's completed. And then what it shows us is all of our color separations. This is what I want to point out to you, how this works. So there are all of our color separations. Now what the software did is it color separated the crystal into two templates. And why is that? Well, we know from a production standpoint, most of the time, this is the result that we want because it's easier to work with different size stones on individual templates. But there is an option here in Easy Stone where we could tell it, hey, don't do that. So in this case, because the two different stone sizes are separated, they're not like next to each other really. It would be fairly easy to make this, even though the stones for our letter M's are done in SS6. The stones for our preserver is done in SS10. Now, obviously, we could have used SS10 for the letter M's. I just wanted to just show the example here of two different stone sizes. But if we select the design again and choose that export vector option, once again, if we go into advanced export options, we can actually tell it right here for crystal, make one template. That's basically what that little checkbox does. And we want to make sure this checkbox is checked to utilize the settings for advanced export options. So now when we choose export, we'll say yes, and we'll say yes, and yes, because it's saying that we already output those files once, which we did. So we're going to overwrite all the existing ones. And now we have our new color separations. But notice the crystal template here is 1. So what we would do is we would brush in our SS10 stones, and then we would brush in the SS6 stones for our letter M's after we had our 10s in place. And because the 10s won't fit into the SS6 holes, we'll be fine. And then of course we have one template here for all the SS10 stones for the light cyan. So that's it. start to finish. Took about, probably in real time, it probably took about a half an hour. But that gives us absolutely everything we need for the website. We have a nice proof image for the website. And of course, we have our color separated vector files that we can upload to the store now. And that's how you create a design from start to finish using EasyStone. Thanks for watching.